Hi everyone, my name is Santiago Duque and I'm from group number 2 and the main topic is the classical and medieval West. My objective is to present and discuss the influence of Christianity on art on society in medieval Europe. After the death of Jesus Christ in about 33 CE, his followers became convinced that he was the Son of God, who had physically resurrected from the grave. They began to collect and disseminate his teachings. From its beginning in Palestine, the new Christian faith spread rapidly across the Mediterranean world and influenced the art of two empires, Roman and Byzantine. As well, the Romans at first regarded Christianity as a strange cult and attempted to suppress it through law. This forced the followers of Christ to worship and hide their art in private homes and underground burial chambers called catacombs. The earliest Christian art was a simplified interpretation of Roman figure painting with a new emphasis on storytelling through images of Christ and other biblical figures, as well as through symbols. Okay, how I said before, the first works of art through Christianity were made with Roman images with emphasis on figures of Christ and other biblical figures, as was this work of Christ and his apostles. This picture presents Jesus at the center rather than the others, symbolizing his divine authority. The apostles, dressed in flowing robes, surround him in solemn devotion. The figures are stylized with elongated forms and expressive gestures, reflecting Romance or Gothic art. Rich colors like deep blues, reds, and golds enhance the spiritual tone, while the background may feature a simple gold leaf or a church-like setting. By the time Emperor Constantine acknowledged Christianity in 313, Roman attitudes had changed considerably. The grandeur of Rome was rapidly declining, as confidence in the stability of the material world fell. More people turned toward the spiritual values that Christianity offered. To reflect this change in orientation, Constantine pioneered a new type of imperial portrait, as we see in the picture, the head of Constantine. Once part of an immense figure, the head is an image of imperial majesty, yet the large eyes and stiff features express an inner spiritual life, the late Roman style of the facial features. Particularly, the eyes is very different from the natural limbs of early Roman portraits, and Constantine's otherworldly gaze contrasts markedly with the realistic squint of the bust of Emperor Vespasian. Thanks to this growth of Christianity, many churches began to be built. These churches began to need large paintings or decorations to cover their walls. The mosaic technique was perfected and widely used in the first churches built. It was also common to affix pieces of colored marble with different figures of Jesus and the apostles. This allowed for a brilliant light and gave the churches a new image of this type of art. This was very significant because if you go to a church in this time, you will see pictures like this, doing that the church will be beautiful and the Christian person have a better experience in the church. The arts of the early Christian period were affected by a constant controversy between those who sought to follow the biblical prohibition against idolatry. That idolatry is the creation and worship of sacred images, and those who sought images that will contribute to the narrative of sacred stories. The Byzantine style developed as a way to inspire the illiterate while fulfilling the biblical commandment prohibiting the creation of images. Byzantine theory held that highly stylized and decorative images could never be mistaken for a real person, as a naturalistic work could. As a result, the naturalism and sense of depth characteristic of Roman painting gradually gave way to Byzantine stylization. I will show you a very important picture in that time. The absent mosaic inside St. Vital shows Christ dressed in royal purple and seated on a globe symbolizing the universe. He is beardless in the manner of classical gods. With his right hand, he hands a crown to St. Vital, who, along with other saints and angels, represents the biblical paradise. The appearance of all these figures is inspired by Roman art, but in keeping with the Byzantine style, they remain motionless and gaze straight ahead. In their heavenly majesty, they seem to rise above human concerns. Okay, right here we can see that important picture with the characteristics that I said before. And I will let you guys to analyze a little bit this important image of the Roman Empire and Byzantine Empire, because that time was very important in the life of the humans. Finally, I want to let you guys a big concept about this topic. Christian art profoundly influenced the Middle Ages, serving as a means of teaching and spreading religion in an era where the majority was illiterate. Churches, cathedrals, and monasteries were centers of artistic creation, with works such as frescoes, sculptures, and stained glass windows depicting biblical scenes and sacred figures, seeking to connect the divine with the faithful. Architecture, especially Romanesque and Gothic, reflected spiritual values, while monasteries preserved knowledge and produced illuminated manuscripts. Art not only beautified sacred spaces, but also symbolized the Christian worldview of the medieval world, serving as a tool of religious communication and devotion. Alright, here is like the resource if you guys want to see that information. Okay, right here we can see the painting that I showed you guys before. Right here there are more explanation about that picture if you guys want to read it. Lastly, I will show you guys a video about this topic. It's a very interesting video, so I will play it.
The Middle Ages spanned 1,000 years, from about 500 to 1500. The first half was a time of relative poverty and economic stagnation. Then, around the year 1000, Europe rebounded. That story, its turmoil and triumphs, is reflected in the magnificent art and architecture of the age. We start after the fall of Rome, as the flickering flame of civilization was kept alive in monasteries and in fortress-like churches. We'll see how Europe was invigorated by neighbors on the fringes, from Christian Byzantium to Islamic Spain to the pagan Vikings of the north. Then we step into the High Middle Ages, marveling at formidable castles, radiant Gothic cathedrals, and art that both dazzled the faithful and celebrated secular life, as Europeans approached the dawn of a new age. By the year 1000, Europe was on the rise. Entering a period called the High Middle Ages, it was a time of growing innovation, trade, and travel. Christianity was dominant, and people celebrated their faith by building great structures. The imposing Romanesque style was eventually eclipsed by an even grander style, Gothic. Gothic was an architectural leap forward, with taller and taller churches reaching for the heavens and filled with more and more light. Fueled by their faith, Europeans built towering cathedrals to the glory of God. Each community tried to outdo the other. with churches featuring soaring naves, supported by elaborate pointed arches and flooded with light. Gothic seemed to be emblematic of a Europe moving upward and onward. The Gothic style was born in France in the 12th century. The cathedral in Chartres, one of the first, greatest, and most influential Gothic churches, captures the spirit of this age of faith, as the Middle Ages were nicknamed. Magnificent structures were built by the sweat of peasants, construction projects that dominated entire communities for generations, all for the glory of God. Towering churches like this became sites which, for centuries, broke distant horizons, heartening the weary spirits of approaching pilgrims. Gothic churches were taller and brighter than the earlier Romanesque. They were made with a skeleton of support. The key to Gothic is the pointed arch. A Romanesque church is built with round arches. With a round arch, the weight pushes down. But with a pointed arch, the weight pushes not down, but out. As a tour guide, it's fun to demonstrate this by building a Gothic cathedral out of tourists. You start with 6 columns. These will support the roof with ribs, ignore the elbows, coming together with pointed arches. The key to Gothic is the pointed arch. A Romanesque church is built with round arches. With a round arch, the weight sits squarely on the wall, and it needs to be thick and strong. If a round arch collapses, it falls down. But if you point the arches, suddenly the weight of the roof pushes not down, but out. So rather than thick walls, you need to buttress the building by adding support pushing in. So you need 6 more tourists to be buttresses. With buttresses rather than thick walls supporting the church, the walls are freed to become window holders, letting in more light. To free up even more wall space, you can make the buttresses flying buttresses, with their support flying in with more arches.
Are you guys ready for a spire?
Yes, we are.
Now, when the spire is raised, because of the pointed arches, the weight goes out rather than down. And with buttresses in place, everything is solid. Windows can fill the spaces between the columns, and you've built a Gothic church out of tourists.
Yep.
Okay, that will be everything. Thank you guys, and I hope you have enjoyed this video because it was very interesting. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a good day.